Hey everybody, Charles from GMAT Ninja Tutoring here. Today we're going to talk about combination and permutation questions on the GMAT and executive assessment, sometimes known collectively as combinatorics questions. This is one of those things people freak out all the time. It's one of the boogeymen of the GMAT. Oh, I'm terrible at it. I hear it all the time. It's one of the biggest things holding me back, one of the biggest things I need to practice. Guess what, guys? These are actually really rare on the GMAT. Combinations, permutations together, maybe 2 or 3% of your quant questions at most. The occasional cameo on data insights if you're taking the GMAT. Fairly rare, not a huge thing. If you're going for a super elite quant score, by all means, you want to be really good at these. Even that 2 or 3% can really matter. If your goals are pretty modest, if you're looking for a 75 or an 80, 80 is a fantastic score on the GMAT. Odds are pretty good that you're going to be in really good shape if you can master the very, very basics, defend yourself against missing easy questions. So first 3 questions we're going to go through today, first 2 or 3 questions, fairly fundamental. I'll be really clear about kind of labeling when you're going to be in good shape if your goals are fairly modest, when you might want to turn off the video. For people going for that elite score, we're going to go through a total of 7 questions today. The last few are going to get pretty tough, going to throw some little logical tweaks in there that are very much in the style of the GMAT. Have a little fun with you on those. Give you a taste for the kinds of things they can do in those rare, really hard combination permutation questions. Now, usually we do a little bit of data sufficiency in these videos, which obviously appears on the data insights section of the GMAT. Today, we're not going to, just because combination permutation questions and data sufficiency are exceedingly rare. They could show up, but there's just not that many of them out there. We're going to focus on problem solving today. Now, again, this is part of our full free GMAT course we have up on our YouTube channel. If you're enjoying it, please hit the like button, please subscribe. If you're really enjoying it and you're trying to figure out what's going on in your head, want some one-on-one attention, hit us up at gmatninja.com. We've been doing one-on-one tutoring for more than 20 years now. And if we're saving you money with this full free course, consider donating to some of our favorite charities, and you can find a link to those in the video description. All right, with that, let's jump into the first question. Go ahead and take a couple minutes on this one. All right, this one's about as straightforward as a permutation question is going to get on the GMAT or executive assessment. Nice simple setup. Some dude named Ralph visiting Balzania via Balzania Airlines, going to 4 destinations out of the airline's 10. Now, biggest thing, most important thing by far on the GMAT or EA with combinatorics questions, notice whether order matters or order doesn't matter. They're not going to try to trick you with this. They're not going to get sneaky with it. Very, very clear pretty much every time when you see an official question. Ralph will visit the locations in the order in which they are chosen. That's actually a line that we borrowed from an actual GMAT question. The rest of the setup is ours. That particular line is something that actually appears in a real GMAT question. Why are we emphasizing that? Easiest way to make a mistake here is to apply the wrong formula or to think incorrectly about what's going on. Some people have memorized formulas. I'll talk more about that on the next question. Here, just be intuitive. Picture what's going on. Ralph here is going to go to 4 places. So he's got destination number 1, destination number 2, destination number 3, and destination number 4. We care about the order. How many options does Ralph have in his first destination? Well, 10 different destinations, go to 10 different places. How many are left for the next one? He can go to 9 different places. How many for the next? 8 remaining. And then 7, because he's visiting different destinations, not repeating them. So what are you doing here? That's it. You just multiply these. 10 times 9 times 8 times 7. Even if you don't want to do that math, it's got to be this big boy right here. We don't even need to do the arithmetic. Clearly has to be the right answer. And that is it. Nice and straightforward. If you like the jargon, this is called a permutation. If you don't like the jargon, please don't worry about it. Some people find it easier to separate permutation combination if they hear those words. They're never going to actually get used on the GMAT. If that jargon kind of makes your head spin, don't worry about it. Do you notice whether order matters or not? That's it. Skill number 1. If order does matter, so visiting cities A, B, C, and D is a different itinerary than visiting cities D, C, B, and A in that order, then order matters. Just use slots, be nice and intuitive. That's going to cover you on most permutation questions that you really need to get right on this test. All right, basic permutation. That's that one. Now we're going to give you a slightly different variation on this question. Go ahead and take a minute or two. All right, setup here looks an awful lot like question number 1. In that one, we had our buddy Ralph visiting 4 destinations out of Balzania Airlines 10. But notice the language. We cared about the order. It said that really explicitly in the question. So when that's the case, you're going to use slots. Again, picture what's going on. Choose one destination. How many options? There were 10. How many for the next one? There were 9, and so on. Same deal here. Combinations, permutations. It has so much logic in it typically. And job number 1 is picture the setup. That's what's going to unlock everything for you, even as they get crazy, crazy hard down the road. What's going on here? Okay, somebody is going to 2 of the 6 domestic destinations, 2 of the 4 international destinations. They're going to separate those out, right? Imagine that you're planning a vacation. You're going to say, all right, I've got 6 domestic options. I'm going to choose 2 of those, right? Now, as soon as you hear that word choose, that's your hint. This is combinations, not permutations. Order doesn't matter at all. We're not going to use slots. Instead, when order doesn't matter, we're using a nice little formula. If you've never seen it before, I'm going to explain it quickly. Okay, so dealing first with this business of choosing 2 domestic destinations out of 6. What is N? N is the number in kind of the large group. In this case, we're choosing among 6 different domestic destinations. K is the number that you have in your subgroup. So in this case, we're choosing 2 out of those 6 destinations. From there, it really is just plug and chug. 6 factorial over 4 factorial times 2 factorial. This is going to be the number of ways to choose, when order doesn't matter, choose 2 destinations out of that total of 6 domestic destinations. Now, quick little thing here. You could write out all these numbers. That's not a habit I want you to get into. I'm going to do it here just so you can see what's going on. 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. I'm going to give myself a hand cramp because I love you. I'm not even going to charge you for it. 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 times 2 times 1 again. Notice that you could have canceled out the 4, 3, 2, 1 from the start. As you practice these problems, if you're new to them, that's going to hopefully become second nature. I want you to think about it consciously as you're just starting out. 6 factorial divided by 4 factorial. What I could do instead is just write out 6 times 5 on top from the very start, canceling out everything from 4 downward. On the bottom, I've just got the 2. That's going to give me 15. That's the total number of ways to choose 2 destinations out of the 6 domestic options. All right, what about the other half of the question? International destinations, I've got 4 to choose from. I'm going to choose 2 of them. So same idea, 4 factorial up here, 2 factorial, 2 factorial. And again, if I'm being really enterprising, a little bit more efficient, I don't have to worry about anything from 2 downward up here. 4 times 3, I've still got that 2 hanging out down there. That's going to be 6. Okay, so 15 different pairs of 2 domestic destinations I could choose from 6. 6 different pairs of 2 international destinations. What do I do with those numbers? A really common mistake I see here, people will try to add them up. But think about what's going on here. So let's suppose that these domestic destinations have, I don't know, let's say that they're lettered from A to F. So we could have A and B, we could have B and C, we could have A and D and so on. So 15 different pairs if I were to write them all out. Pain in the butt to do so, but just picture, okay, I've got 15 different pairs. For each of those pairs, I've got 6 different pairs of international destinations. So if those have, let's say, numbers on them, so I could have 1, 2, or 1, 3, or 2, 3, and so on. So for each pair of domestic destinations, I have 6 different pairs of international destinations. So what am I doing here? Am I adding or am I multiplying? As soon as you hear that phrase, for each of these, you're multiplying. 15 times 6, that's going to give you 90, and that's our answer. Okay, guys. If your goals are pretty modest, if you're taking the executive assessment, applying to an executive MBA program, you just need a 10, 11, 12, something like that on Quant. If you're taking the GMAT, you just need something like a 75 or even an 80 to be happy on Quant. You know what? You could probably stop here. If you can handle this, here's when order matters, here's when it doesn't matter. You keep those 2 separate, you read carefully, you can picture the setup. You're probably okay here. You can stop watching the video if you really want to. Next question's maybe a little notch up. After that, it's going to get hairier. But the joke of the GMAT is these aren't that common. 2 to 3% of the questions are going to be combinations and permutations. You don't need to be all that great to get a really, at this stuff specifically, to get a really solid score. So if you can handle these 2 questions and you're feeling really good about it, you're already in really, really good shape to get a strong score. All right, going to go ahead and kick this up a notch for those of you who want to stick around. Go ahead and take a minute or 2 on this one. All right, if you need a little more time on this one, feel free to hit the pause button, rewind as needed. Okay, so again, job number one on these questions. Is this a situation where order matters or it doesn't matter? They're not getting tricky here. They're always going to be really clear. Combinations of 4 items can be selected. We're in the world of combinations. Order does not matter. We're going to use the formula. We're not going to use the slots. Okay, great. Now, what makes this question a little bit funky? It's this business of at least one. You're going to see that not infrequently, at least. You're going to see it sometimes on probability questions, occasionally on combinations, permutations. And again, what is this all about with the GMAT? There's not a whole lot more technical stuff here on combinations, permutations. It's something that I kind of find remarkable in general about the GMAT. They take basic stuff, they layer up these questions that have more and more layers of logic and reasoning, and they turn it into a really hard puzzle. There's usually not a lot technical there. This is one of those cases. Really, it's just thinking through, okay, picture this situation, and can you kind of find a way to intuit your way to what you need to do here? If I walk into a restaurant, there's 6 salads, there's 4 desserts on the menu, and I go, okay, I want to select something that has at least 1 dessert. I want 4 items because I'm really hungry. I'm going to select 4 items, but there's got to be at least 1 dessert in there. How many ways are there to do that? Okay, well, what's the complement or the opposite of getting at least 1 dessert? I can do one of 2 things when I walk into this restaurant. I can get at least 1 dessert, or I can get no desserts. One of those things is going to make me happier than the other, obviously. So in this case, I either get at least 1 dessert or I get no desserts, right? Okay, that's the key. Once you get that, you basically unlock the question. How many total combinations are there? Let's start there. So total combinations, all right, 10 items. I'm going to choose 4 of them. So 10 factorial over 6 factorial, 4 factorial. Again, little trick here. I'm going to slice off everything from 6 downward. I've got 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 over 4 times 3 times 2. Again, I'm not going to multiply all this out yet. Going to see what I can cancel out. Really nice here. I've got the 4 and the 2, cancel the 8. And I've got the 3 that can cancel the 9 down to a 3. So 3 times 7, 21 times 10. I've got 210 combinations. I'm not done yet though. That's total combinations regardless of whether they include a dessert. I only want the ones that have at least 1 dessert. Could be 4 desserts, could be 3 desserts, could be 2 desserts, could be 1 dessert. I don't want to calculate all 4 of those things. What I can do instead is say, here's my total combinations. I'm going to subtract out the combos that have no desserts. So combos with no dessert, the ones that make me sad. Okay, so what's that? That would just be 4 salads, right? How many ways can I choose 4 salads from a group of 6 salads? We're right back to using that formula. This time, 6 salads to choose from. I'm going to choose 4. And we're almost done. How many ways are there to get 4 salads? No desserts. 6 times 5. Divide it by 2. And we've got 15. So total combinations, regardless of how many desserts there are. Combinations with salad only, no desserts. 210 minus 15, 195. That's it, we're done. Now, these questions, we can start layering them up. We can make them almost infinitely difficult. And it's not that there's anything technical there. Very little that's technical or things I can teach you where it's like, hey, here's a nifty new formula for this other kind of combination or permutation question. Very little that exists for this test. Instead, it's just when they give you a little tweak, I'm looking for at least 1 dessert in my 4 items. Can you kind of intuit your way through it, apply a little bit of logic, figure out what to do? Nothing super technical. Now, the rest of this video, these are going to get tougher, but it's the same basics constantly. I'm just adding layers. These questions are going to get harder and harder. Again, if your goal is an 80 on GMAT Quant, something like a 10, 11, 12 on the executive assessment Quant, you probably don't need the rest of this video. If you think you're going to enjoy it, stick with us. Fun to have you here. But unless you're going for an elite score, you really don't need to master the rest of this video. All right, with that said, if you want to stick with us, thank you for sticking around. We'll try to have fun. Go ahead and tackle this next question. All right, now the party starts. These are getting pretty tough. Again, for many of you watching this, if your goal is something like an 80 or below on GMAT Quant, you don't need this. We're having a good time. These are kind of fun. They're kind of interesting. They're really, really tough at times. But again, same basics, same thing we did in the first two questions, just with a little wrinkle here or there. Those wrinkles tend to be logical. If you can apply a little bit of intuition here and kind of think about what's going on, you don't need anything technical. Is there a formula for tackling this question? Yeah. Do you need it? No. If you can kind of think through what's going on, you can unwind this even if you haven't explicitly learned a formula or any technique behind this. All right. In this situation, again, what jumps out at me right off the bat, because letters O, I, N, 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 and K can be rearranged. Okay, right there. I know right off the bat, we're talking about arrangements. Order matters. This is going to be about slots, not the formula for combinations. We're going to be using slots. Order matters. 6-letter strings. Word strings isn't necessarily something we use in this context in the real world very often, but codes would be another way to say it. If we rearrange these letters, we get a different code. So we know we're talking about slots here. How many distinct 6-letter strings can be created? All right, if you're playing with this, my first thought here when I see something like this is, well, all right, 6-letter strings, how many options do I have? Well, I've got 6 slots. I've got 6 options for the first, 5 for the second, 4 for the third, 3, 2, 1. I could multiply all those together. If I do that, I'm going to get 720. Cool, sounds good. Hold on. Here's where the logical wrinkle comes in, is you've got the same letter repeated. So if I have this, for example, O-I-N-N-N-K, it's 3 different N's, but they all look the same. So another way to think about it is, how many different 3-letter strings could be created with 3 N's? Only 1, right? We're not saying that it's 3, 2, and 1, because it's the same letter. We can't tell the difference between, for example, if we gave these numbers and said this is N1, N2, and N3, well then, yeah, sure, these are 3 distinct characters. So we're gonna have 3 options for the first if we're just rearranging the N's. 3 options for the first slot, 2 and then 1, there'd be 6 ways to do it. But if we don't have these little subscripts here, they all look the same. There's only one way to rearrange it. Even though it feels like there should be 6, again, if these were distinct letters, there'd be 6 ways to rearrange these 3. But since there aren't, there's only 1. That's where this whole question unlocks. The idea here, the concept here is, when we do this in this question, when we just say 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, we're treating it as if all 6 letters are completely distinct and look distinct. Where is the redundancy coming in? It's coming in because those N's all look the same. So by what factor are we overcounting is the question here. So 3 N's, they are identical, only one way to rearrange those 3 N's, but if they were distinct, there'd be 6. So what we're saying is we're overcounting by a factor of 6. So if we're doing it this way, we're getting 6 times as many strings or codes or arrangements as we should. So pretty straightforward from here. Once you recognize that bit of logic, you're overcounting by a factor of 6. All we have to do is take this, divide it by 6, we're done. That's it. 720 divided by 6, or you could just cancel the 6 up here if you prefer, same deal. 720 divided by 6, that's going to give us 120, and our answer is D. Now again, if you struggled here, please don't feel bad. Combinations, permutations, total, 2 or 3% of your exam on the GMAT of the quant section. That's about it. We can keep creating these logical wrinkles until the cows come home. We can drive ourselves nuts. The GMAT does get creative with these, but again, they're rare and there's not a lot technical here. If you can follow the logic, you'll be able to unlock some of these really hard ones. Even if you haven't done a ton of combinations, permutations, sometimes you can follow the logic and do really well. Don't get intimidated by them. There's usually less going on than it seems. Okay, 3 more questions. We're going to keep ramping them up a little bit, and you're going to see this concept one more time in a harder question in a minute or 2. But one more first. Go ahead and take a couple minutes on this next one. All right, these are getting tough now. No shame at all if you're struggling. Rewind, pause as you need to, have some fun with this one. Uh, like I said in the last couple questions, really, they're just making little logical tweaks, nothing technical here. Typical of the GMAT, typical of even the hardest questions. Sometimes there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to show you one way of going about this that's really rooted in the logic of the question. If you have a different way of doing it that works out for you, fantastic. I can think of a few others. We're just going to focus on one right now. Okay, 5 countries. Each country is sending 3 people to a conference, so you got 15 people total. We're going to choose a 3-person committee that does not include more than one representative of a different country. So there can only be one person, no more than one person from each country, 3 people on the committee, 5 countries represented. What do we do here? Again, notice the language, committees, chosen. We're in the world where order does not matter here. It's going to be using the formula, combinations, not permutations, not slots, going to use the formula. Okay, cool. Now, how the heck do we use the formula here? That's the tough part. Maybe your instinct is, well, I've got 15 people total. I'm going to choose 3 of those, so 3 factorial times 12 factorial. Not a bad start. You could do something with that. But notice that this really doesn't take into account the whole business of, well, we can't have multiple people from the same country. Again, you could take this, you can get somewhere with this. It's doable. I've got a way that, for me at least, is a little more intuitive. And that's what it's all about as you do these. If you can get to the intuition that works for you, run with it. So here what I'm going to do instead is say, wait a minute, no more than one person per country. So I could think of this as I'm really choosing 3 countries out of the 5 to be represented. So step 1, again, my way of doing it, you could find a different one that's just as quick, maybe a little bit slower, lots of ways to do it. Typical GMAT, give you lots of solution paths. Do your best to pick the one that makes the most sense to you that you can execute on quickly. For me, I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to choose, and there's that word again, 3 countries out of the 5. Easy enough. 5 factorial, 3 factorial, 2 factorial, 5 times 4 over 2. We've got 10. So that's 10 different trios of countries. So there's 10 different ways to choose 3 countries out of these 5. Great. Now let's picture this. What are we doing with each of those? So I've got 10 ways to choose trios of countries. So let's say we've chosen the countries. I'm going to draw silly little circles here and say that this is country A, and we've got person 1, 2, and 3 in there. This is country B, B for Balsania. Very beautiful this time of year. I hear the Rocky Mountain oysters are great. Terrible joke, worst joke of the day. Ignore that. So we've got 3 countries here. Each of them has 3 people. So what do we need to do this number to get to our answer here? Well, we've got 3 different people we can choose from the first country. First of the 3 countries that we've chosen. So 3 choices there. So I'm going to take that 10 ways to choose 3 countries from 5. Within the first country, doesn't matter which one it is, within that first country, whatever it may be, 3 different options for the individual people. 3 different options here. For the second country, 3 different options for the third country. Multiply all that together, we get 270, and that's answer choice B. Again, look guys, if your head's spinning, no shame in it. I'll say it over and over again. 2 to 3% of your questions are combinations, permutations on the GMAT. On the EA, that's about it. This is tough. First time I saw it, I saw something very close to this on an actual exam once, years and years ago. It took me a little while. It took me maybe 4 minutes to get through it. First time I saw it. No shame in it at all. This is really good exercise for you to kind of grapple with the logic here. But you're not going to see a lot of stuff this difficult unless you're way up there on the score scale. And even if that's the case, are you going to see this exact variation? Not necessarily, but let's see if you can get better and better at applying logic, thinking through the scenario, finding some intuition that unlocks it. All right, 2 more questions. Both of them are going to be pretty tough. Go ahead and take a couple of minutes on this next one. All right, friends, you're going to love this one. It's really hard. This is a really nasty question. Could we find something harder? Yeah, probably, but it doesn't get much harder than this. I know I'm a broken record on this, but if you struggled here, if you want to take some more time, knock yourself out, enjoy it, see if you can get to the logic underneath it. But there's a lot of layers, really tough question. It is very unlikely you're going to see something tougher on the GMAT. And even if you do, it's not going to ruin your chance at a great score well into the 80s. This is nasty. All right. Again, as always, language should jump out at you. Rearranged strings, again, not a very common word that you see in day-to-day life. Don't worry about it too much. They're always going to be pretty clear about this sort of thing. They're not out to trick you. Order clearly matters here. The temptation, we got the 5 letters. We're going to turn in a 5-letter string. Again, the temptation, kind of like on the question we did that was like this a minute ago with, I think it was the word oink with some extra N's in it. My son, my 3-year-old, calls me oinky. What does that tell you about me? So we could just say, all right, well, there's 5 options here, 4 options here, 3 here, 2 here, 1 here. But again, that ignores the redundancy. The K's look identical. The O's look identical. So this part of it's going to be very much like the one we did before. So there are 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 total ways to arrange these letters if they were distinct. But because the K's look alike, 2 ways, so there's a factor of 2 there where you're going to have redundancy. So we can divide by 2. So we got the 5 factorial here. We divide it by 2 or 2 factorial, same thing, to kind of take out the redundancy of the K's. Same deal with the O's, right? So that's another factor of 2 where we're going to be overcounting by a factor of 2 if we don't take that 2 out here. So times 2 in the denominator. So that's going to give us 5 times 3 times 2 if we do a little canceling. And that's 30 different ways to make a 5-letter string with these letters. Now, of course, we haven't dealt with this nasty little thing. How many strings can be created in which the 2 K's are not adjacent to each other? Oh, fun times. What do you do with that? Look, sometimes on these combinatorics questions, sometimes it's kind of the dumb guy way that helps you a lot. Just try to picture this. Try to do something with it. My first thought on something like this, again, many ways to do these questions, very typical GMAT. Some of you are going to find an even more elegant solution than this. This is what I find the most intuitive, so I'm going to show you that way of doing it. So the K's, so we've got 30 total ways. Now, if I can figure out the number of ways in which we can do these codes where the K's are adjacent and subtract that, I'm going to get my answer and be a happy guy. So what does that look like? Well, I could have KK at the beginning, and then I've got 3 more. I could have a slot here, KK here, 2 more slots, and so on, right? KK, I'm running out of space. KK here, fantastic. These all are going to end up kind of being almost identical. Okay, so how many different strings can I get with 2 K's at the beginning? Well, the temptation here again is to say 3, 2, 1, 3 options here, 2 options here, 1 option here, 6 ways. But again, we got to think about that redundancy thing. So there's going to be 2 O's out of these last 3 letters. So we're going to be overcounting doing it this way by a factor of 2. So if the 2 K's are at the beginning, how many different strings could we get? Just 3. 3 times 2 divided by that 2 to cancel out the overcounting of the O's. So we're going to get 3 different ways here with the K's in the beginning. This is going to be identical. It's not 3, 2, 1. It's going to be 3, 2, 1 divided by 2 to take out that redundancy with the O's. So we've got 4 different spots we could stick the double K. And for each of those 4 spots, we're going to have 3 different ways to arrange the rest of it. So that gives us 3 scenarios with the K's at the beginning, 3 scenarios with the K's after a different letter there, 3 here, 3 here. That's going to give us a total of 12. That's 12 different strings we could create where the K's are adjacent. I've got 30 total, regardless of whether the K's are adjacent. 30 minus 12, that's going to give me 18. And there we go. Again, I know I'm a broken record here. No shame at all if you struggled. Lots of layers to this one. But notice, really nothing technical. There's nothing lurking there where you need some more formulas. That's really not how the test works. We're just going to layer stuff up, make it harder and harder. All right, last question of the day. This one's about as nasty as it gets. Full disclosure, when we created this question, I can't remember if I wrote it first or if Harry, one of our other tutors, wrote it first, but we went back and forth about 6 times on it. I think we missed it 4 times total between the 2 of us before we figured out what we were doing wrong and adjusted the question. It's tough. So enjoy it, do your best with it. Don't be embarrassed if you struggle. Go ahead and take a minute. Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt your quant viewing experience with that weird big-nosed tutor guy. Chances are, if you've made it this far in the video, you're pretty serious about this whole GMAT thing, and if that's the case, I've got two things I want you to be aware of. First of all, if at any point in your admissions process you could use some help on your applications, we would love to help you find the best admissions consultant for you. So there's a little contact form available at gmatninja.com. You can also find it in a link in our video description. Fill that thing out, pretty short, and we'll send you a list of our very favorite admissions consultants at a number of different companies. Yes, it includes our own company, also several others that we've known for years and trust deeply. We want to make sure you end up in the best hands. We're not going to give your email to anybody else. We're not going to do anything weird with it. We're not going to try to sell you anything. There's no kickbacks, no commissions. We just want to give you our honest, best takes on the best admissions consultants and go pick the one that fits your needs the best. Second thing, we also have a comprehensive MBA admissions playlist here on this YouTube channel. If you're just getting started with the GMAT, haven't thought about admissions yet, I would recommend starting to watch some of those videos sooner rather than later. Get your head around the process, start brainstorming a little bit. I promise it's going to make your life much, much easier down the road. All right, that's it. If you've enjoyed these videos, like, subscribe, you know the drill. All right, back to the quant. All right, I'm resisting the urge to just laugh maniacally at you. This is a really tough question. If you sailed through this, you've got an answer, you're feeling confident. Awesome, you deserve a cookie. This is really, really, really nasty. Kind of the end of the rainbow. You're just not going to see anything that's a whole lot more difficult than this. Once again, no shame at all if you struggled. Let's hop in there. Again, plenty of ways to do it, just like a lot of questions here. We got 4-digit positive integers. They're greater than 4,000. How many of those numbers have 3 digits that are equal to each other and one that's different from the other 3? Again, it's just applying logic. No extra formulas here, no extra magical techniques here. It's just thinking through, how do you do this? How do you make sense of it? Now, for me personally, what I found the easiest here is to kind of take a number as an example and just use that to kind of think through what's going on. So kind of first step for me, again, plenty of ways to do this. If you found something that's more elegant and works for you, awesome, that's great. For me, I thought, okay, one possibility here. So I've got 4 numbers, 4 digits in this number. Let me just so I have an example in my head to help me get my head around it. Let's suppose the first digit's a 7, let's just say. So between 7,000 and 7,999, fine. Okay, so one way to fit this criteria, one digit that's different from the other 3, is for all 3 of these to be not 7. Well, how many ways are there to do that? Well, you've got the digits 0 through 9. That's actually 10 digits. Can't be a 7, so there's 9 digits that are not 7s. So we've got 9 different ways here to start with a 7 and then have the other 3 match without being a 7. Okay, so 9 ways there if we start with a 7. Thought number 1, I'm gonna park that on the side for a second. Part number 2, well, what if we've got the 7 is the thing that repeats? So suppose here we've got 7 in the beginning. And again, just as a way to get my head around it. So what if this, everything's a 7, 3 7s, and what if this last one is the only one that is not a 7? Well, how many ways are there to do that? Once again, just like on the last one, we've got 9 different digits that are not 7s. So there's 9 ways here as well. Okay, but there's more. We could stick that not 7 in any of these 3 locations. So there's 9 ways with the not 7 here. There's 9 more ways here. If all the others are 7s, there's going to be 9 different 4-digit numbers that have 3 7s and something other than a 7 in that 3rd spot. Same idea here. There's going to be 9 ways here. So what's our total so far? So we've got 9 ways to have these 3 match and not be a 7. We've got 9 ways for this to match, to get 3 of a kind, and this is the non-7. 9 ways here, 9 ways here. You add all that up. Step number 3, we get 36 total ways. Yeah, but that's only if the first digit is a 7. We've got numbers that are 4,000 and up. So how many different starting numbers could we have? We could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 6 different starting numbers, not just 7. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Couldn't count them on your fingers. No shame in that. If that's what stops you making a careless error, knock yourself out. 36 different ways for each starting number. We've got 6 different starting numbers. 6 times 36, 216. I'm happy. Great. The answer is C. Hold on. Wait. Welcome to the GMAT. Again, they're not out to get you. They're not out to trick you. You want those thoughts out of your head. Sometimes this is just a consequence of the language. They didn't say 4,000 or greater. They said greater than 4,000. The way we just did this, this would include the number 4,000. 4 in the first spot, 3 zeros in the next 3 spots. So we've overcounted by 1. Because the number has to be greater than 4,000, we got to subtract 1 from this. and that's going to give us 216. All right, congratulations on making it to the end of the video if you got this one right. Awesome work, really, really tough. My point here, we can throw wrinkles in here till the cows come home. We can find different ways to kind of tweak the logic. There really isn't a lot of new stuff there. These can feel super hard, but things this tough are exceedingly rare. You could see one or two of them if you're really a high flyer. You might take the test a bunch of times, never see anything even close to this. So don't waste too much time on it. If you really enjoy this, or if you're going for a super high score, knock yourself out. Keep working on these kinds of problems. They're fun for you, but don't go memorizing steps. It's just applying logic to those very, very, very basics. All right, that wraps this up for today. Thank you everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, hit subscribe. If you need more help, want some one-on-one help, hit us up, gmatninja.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.